Hello there, you're welcome back to Morning at NTV. When I look at my time, it tells me 8:28 a.m. Yes, so you're right on time for our business conversation this morning. And so we're going to do it a little bit different because there's something happening on the 29th of August 2019 that you, my business people, need to take note of. So in studios to talk about the CFA Society East African kind of annual investment conference. This is the third edition of it and is its first time to actually happen in Uganda, is underway. It's going to happen on the 29th. Please make sure that you tick that particular date in your calendars. So in studios to talk about that and just to get into the ins and outs and why this should interest you is Miss Susan Kainza. She is the PR and brand activation from CFA Society East Africa. Thank you so much for making time. Welcome to the show.
Okay, thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. Next to her is Mr. Samuel Sejaka. He is the principal of Matt Abaskas, a kind of business school here in the country. Thank you so much for making time. Welcome to Morning at NTV.
Good morning, viewers. Thank you for having me, Mala.
You're welcome. All right, so I think I'll start with you, Susan. You are part of the, the mighty team that is making sure that we have this in Uganda come the 29th. It's the first time in Uganda. What does this mean for the country, especially now that we have the theme, capital markets deepening to spur economic growth? Economic growth has been the conversation day in, day out in Uganda, especially now that just the budget was read just the other day in Uganda now for the first time. What does this mean for us?
Well, we looked at our economies in the East African region and we saw that there's something about growing the economy that has been neglected. That's the capital markets. And these are markets where companies can come and raise capital. So because the markets are small and not well developed, the cost of capital remains high, as investors are reluctant to invest in such a small market, as it's difficult for them to sell when they want to sell. So when these capital markets are developed and they're deep, it makes costs much lower and investors are more willing to invest in the country. So one thing international investors look at, they look at, oh, these capital markets, they're too small. We're not willing to invest here. So it makes them more willing to invest. And when they're more willing to invest in companies and the companies grow and they're able to create more jobs, that is a big impact for the economy of the country.
So what are we looking at in terms of the outcomes of this particular conference? Who are we going to see in this particular conference? Is it the big wigs that make the decisions? Is it them that change, pretty much are involved in changing the space and the environment for us to be able to attract as many investors as possible? Who is going to be in this conference?
Yes, definitely the policymakers will be there and the regulators. We have the Ministry of Finance, we have the regulators of the markets, the Capital Markets Authority. We have players in the market who are the investors, the fund managers who are actually making the investments, the financiers, and also the CFA charter holders who are in this industry who are actually making the decisions. So what we want to do is the deliberations will be used for advocacy efforts to try to set policies that make the deepening of the capital markets favorable and make the markets favorable for investors to invest and also businesses to raise capital.
Businesses to raise capital.
Yeah.
Mr. Abakas, you are the principal of the Abakas. Oh, sorry, Mr. Sejaka, you are the principal of Abakas Business School, and this is interested. You're going to be part of this particular conference as a speaker. And we're looking at making sure that all businesses are involved. What is that one thing that you hope will come out of this particular conference to change the business environment in the country?
Thank you, Mala. Actually, I am here in two capacities.
All right.
One, I'm the chairman of UAP Old Mutual Financial Services. So in that role, we are fund managers and we invest other people's money in different business prospects in Uganda and in East Africa. So we are very, very interested and very excited about the CFA conference taking place in Uganda for the first time because of the amount of awareness it is going to create amongst the investing public. And also to try and look at the constraints to the investment climate in this country in terms of the existing regulatory framework and what needs to be done. So we are going to be talking about economic growth in that sense, yes. Now, in the second aspect of my being here, I am actually the principal of Matt Abacus Business School.
Correct.
Matt Abacus Business School was formed as a result of a merger between what is known as the Management Accountancy Training Company and Abacus Business School. So we have a new name, and that is Matt Abacus Business School. Now, Matt Abacus Business School is the foremost trainer for financial managers in this country. So we train students or working people on the CFA program. So we are an approved trainer for the CFA program in Uganda, and we are going to start our next cohort of training in September. So we are very interested in students also learning about what kind of opportunities are out there for them after they have been trained. Not only do we train on the CFA,
Correct.
but we also train accountants and managers. And in both of those situations, these are the people who are going to make decisions that impact economic growth in this country tomorrow.
Right. Okay.
So we are very excited that in those two aspects, we will be participating and assisting the CFA to drive the message of economic growth across. How can we spur more economic growth
You
in
know,
Uganda?
Matt Abacus trains them that I think hold the heart of the economy,
True.
and they will be the future of that, so to
Exactly.
speak.
Yes.
In classes, and I'm sure the young people are very articulate on matters to do with the economy and matters that touch on them. What do they tell you as students? We are having the CFA, it's okay, touching on capital markets, trying to see how we're going to make the environment robust for the different investors and also for businesses to also, invest in capital markets, so to speak. And we've always been having this conversation of making sure that in the different big companies, then a majority, the Ugandans feel like they're part and parcel of these businesses by buying shares and stuff like that.
Yes.
So what are your students telling you with regards to what they want to see in this particular space to pave way that when they come after being graduates, then things are different?
The students are sending various messages. First of all, we have two types of students. We have students who are working, and we have students who have come from college, from high school, and want to get a qualification. So there are two messages really coming out there. One is that if there is not enough economic growth, then job creation is hampered. So what can we do to spur this economic growth and create jobs for the young population? You know that our population is largely made up of young people who are looking for jobs.
Correct.
And they want to get out of this dependency syndrome. So they are aspirational, and they're saying, what are we doing to create the jobs as a country? So that is the message coming from the students. From the people who are working, the conversation is about a restrictive investment regime in terms of where they can invest some of the money that they are managing or some of the money that they are saving. So what are the things that we can, one, sensitize these people on in terms of saving, i.e. buying shares, for example,
Correct.
buying unit trusts, for example, and all the other options that are available to these people as savers. But also, how can we have a more pliable capital markets authority regime so that more and more companies can be quoted onto the stock exchange and traded?
Yes.
So that is part of the conversation that we're having at Matt Abacus. And I know that this conversation interests the CFA Society.
Correct.
And that's why we are really partners in this, and we are very excited to try and take this message out to the public.
Okay.
Try and see what changes can be made in the legal environment so that there is more investment that can be made and so forth.
Susan,
Yes.
you're going to be, I think you are one of the backbones, like I said earlier on, of making sure that this event is not just like any other. And people want to know what will make this conference different. There are many conferences that are held in Uganda, touching on economic growth, big conversations that happen, but people cry out and say that they just stop at that in those particular halls with the elite in there. What are we doing differently to ensure that this conference actually makes an impact in the environment of economic growth and in the economy of the country, making sure that things trickle down, that conversation trickles down to change in the grassroots?
Okay, as charter holders, we've also realized that sometimes when you're speaking, you're not speaking to the general public as such. So we invited Casita is going to be a part of our conversation. So that way we'll reach the actual business owners in Kampala who are doing business, and we reach and touch on what their problems are and why they would not want to use the capital markets. We've also been in touch with the SACCOs in the country to see the SACCOs are where Ugandans are saving. So looking at how can we get the SACCOs to also use the capital markets as well. So we've made sure that we've got in touch with the general public and the people to hear that conversation. Then our conference will have a lot of a practical application. For example, when we look at the ethical considerations for the capital markets, when it's not going to be theory or just a discussion, it's going to be a practical application where we put ourselves in real life situations of when you're faced with this ethical challenge. You know, it's easy to say be ethical, but what happens when you're faced with this actual ethical challenge? What would people do, and what should you do, and how should you face it? So putting people in real life situations, we've made sure we've got together the policymakers, the regulators, plus the individuals or ordinary individuals of the public. That when it comes to Casita and the SACCOs and also ordinary individuals, such that this conversation is impactful. And one thing that we're determined is that we are going to set the conversation for the year, and this will have an actual impact in how we're doing things going forward. I think that is our key goal.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Sejaka, you're going to be part of this particular conference, like you said, in different capacities.
Right.
What's your hope in terms of the outcome of this particular conference? You as a speaker and also you as a great stakeholder in Uganda's economy.
My hope is that, you see, the conversation about economic growth is always an ongoing challenge for any human society. So my hope is that we can come up with some solid suggestions in terms of how we can spur more companies getting floated onto the stock exchange, how we can help the public understand what stock markets are about and what holding equities is about. Our equities market has not been doing very well. Prices have plummeted a bit, have fallen a bit rather, and the reason for that has more to do with the confidence in the market as opposed to the actual performance of these companies.
Correct.
So can we make people understand that the fundamentals in these banks which are floated, for example Stanbic, in these companies which are floated like Umeme, are still sound so that they can invest in these shares? And this is part of what we hope to achieve. Two, how can we create a fast track for companies being floated on the stock exchange? There's some really good companies out there with good governance regimes.
Correct.
And they're making profit. And we have members of the public putting their money in SACCOs, putting their monies in trees,
Correct.
putting their monies in buildings.
Correct.
And we want this money to come out and be invested in the stock market so that investors have an access to cheap capital.
When are we going to see
So-
Matabakas being floated in
5 years down the road. That is going to happen. That is
5
going to
years down
happen.
the
That
road.
is our
Can I
dream.
take that to the bank?
Take that to the bank
All
and
right.
get ready to invest in Matabakas.
All
5
right.
years down the road.
Yes, Susan.
One thing I can say is when we looked at our keynote speaker, we chose someone who, she's called Melissa Cook. She was on the former Barack Obama Advisory Council for doing business in Africa, and she advises investors on investing in Africa. So when she comes and makes a keynote speaker and is in Uganda, she is well to give that advice on what investors actually say on why they would not want to invest in Uganda and steps that we can take. So she's quite influential in investment in Africa as well. So our keynote speaker is a good choice, and it's good to hear from her and see what she has to say.
All right, okay. And I think I'll throw this to Mr. Sejaka. You interact with these young souls who are very passionate about entrepreneurship on a
Right.
day-to-day basis. And this question is coming through with regards to this particular space. You're saying that come 5 years, in the next 5 years,
Right.
Matabakas will be listed in the
Right.
stock exchange. But what do people want to hear in terms of investing in the country? We have a majority of Ugandans who have, you know, disposable income, but they fear in investing in the country. They're saying that, hey, we don't have tax incentives like the foreign investors have. Is that a conversation that we'll be seeing in this particular conference on how we can also promote the local Uganda to invest in their homeland?
That is a conversation we're happy to have. First of all, it is not correct to say that there are no tax incentives for locals. It's more about maybe sensitization about what incentives are available.
Are there incentives first?
Yes, the incentives exist. We have a whole investment code, which should be a conversation for another day. We've put in place a one-stop center through the Uganda Investment Authority. And there are quite a number of things. It's really just about walking into this investment center and asking.
So why
it's
do we
really
have that information gap? Why do you have that information gap? Because a majority Omuntu Awansi will tell you, not just Omuntu Awansi, them that have the capacity to invest, they will tell you, the first time I register my business, URA is there knocking, calling. Why do we have then that information
gap? But URA
is
calling so that if you're registered, you comply. Compliance does not mean paying taxes. I think that distinction has to be clear, because if you're registered, then you're supposed to file returns.
Correct.
You're supposed to inform, have certain licenses, and so forth. So that is what it is about. But the person you call Omuntu Awansi maybe, it's more of an attitudinal thing we have to deal with, because how come, I mean, when you talk about foreign investors, most people want to think of the multinationals. Okay, but think of the average Indian who migrates to this country and 10, 15 years down the road has been very successful. And I think for me that is an attitudinal problem about a good work ethic, about discipline, managing your own resources, and about having a long-term view of your business.
So what
now,
you're
for
saying,
very many of us
in
the Omuntu Awansi, we are holding a dagger to ourselves, because once you start making money, you then put it in investments that actually don't make money. You build a country, you buy a townhouse, you build a country home, you plant trees. All those are not going to give you money at the end of the year, okay? You make a very big wedding, you make a very large statement that you have arrived, you buy a very big motor vehicle. So we are doing all the wrong things. So maybe we can have a conversation about financial literacy as part of this. But we are very excited as Matt Abacus and UAP Old Mutual to try and sensitize our Omuntu Awansi about what we ought to be doing in terms of investment.
It seems like clearly the information gap is the problem. If you're saying that the business environment is okay, if we're having, like you're saying, foreigners come in and thrive.
It's the same business environment.
Same business environment.
For everybody.
Yes. So what you're saying is the information gap and the attitude as well.
Yes.
Work ethic. Susan, as you wrap this up, pointers as we wrap this up, when is this happening again? What are the timelines? How can people be part of this? Them that are far away, can they also follow through with the conversations? Tell us that.
This event is happening on Thursday, the 29th of August, at the Kampala Serena from 7 a.m. You can go to online to register online at events.
Is it free?
No, it's 100,000 for members, 200,000 for non-members, and 3 million for a table.
Okay.
So you can register online on the website on events, cfaeastafrica.org. You can call 0775-965-734 for more details on how you can attend. So it's a must-have for everyone within the financial industry and everyone who's interested in the topic of raising capital and capital markets.
Can we also stream live the conversation?
It's going to be live on social media as well.
Okay, on what platforms?
Facebook and Twitter.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the CFA? On the CFA page?
Yes, on the CFA East Africa page.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming through.
Thank you.
We're all looking forward to this conversation, hoping that this time round it's different and people feel the impact thereafter with regards to the economic space changing for the better. I was joined by Miss Susan Kaiser. She is the PR and brand activation personnel at CFA Society East Africa, and also Mr. Samuel Sejaka. He is the principal of Matt Abacus Business School. Thank you so much for making time.
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome. So that's it for Morning at NTV this amazing, beautiful Thursday morning. We wish you all the best. My name is Malaki Vilaudera. Keep your views coming. We are so active on social media. Hashtag Morning at NTV. I'll see you tomorrow from 6:30 to 9 a.m. I always tell you, go ye, make it work, stay safe, be blessed. Bye-bye.